Okay, Vino Adonai Eloheinu Aleinu Maaseh Adenu Konena Aleinu Maaseh Adenu Konenu. We're going to continue on in Shaare Orah. We are in the version of the book that is in the thumbnail. We're on page Resh Tet Zayin, and we're actually going to read from the Shaare Orah today as opposed to the bottom. Okay, so we're talking about the midah of tzaddik, yesod, right? El Chai. And we're continuing on in this process. And what we've been talking about more recently is the connection between the yesod and the malchut, that connection that is so necessary. Ulufi shishte ele midot shem El Chai v'Adonai. And because these two midot, one is El Chai, which is the yesod, and the other one is Aleph Daled Nun Yud, which is the malchut, right? B'hit ahadam zo bazo, when they are together, unified one to the other. Azai kol ha'olam kulo b'shlemut. The entire world is in shlemut. What is shlemut? When there's a zivug, when there's a connection between the upper and the lower. That's called shlemut, okay? Natan Adonai yitbarach leYisrael yom haShabbat keneged shte midot elu, halalu. And the Shabbat is given for specifically these two midot, the midah of the Yesod and the midah of the Malchut. Zachor layom keneged El Chai, v'shamor lalayla keneged Aleph Daled Nun Yud. Let's understand that.
Is the connect on Shabbat? Is there a change where, from a global standpoint, Malkut and Yesod are connected?
They're connected, assuming that the person.
No, not the person. I mean, on a global. I mean, I know everyone we have our individual, and then there's a global.
He didn't say that, so I don't know. It sounds to me he's hinting to that a little bit. Let's see on the bottom what they say. So remember, we have two luchot. We have two presentations of the luchot. One is in Parashat Yitro, and the other one is in Parashat Vayetchanan. And what's the difference between the two luchot? In Yitro it says Zachor et Yom HaShabbat L'Kadesho, and in Vayetchanan it says Shamor et Yom HaShabbat L'Kadesho. Yes, one is Zachor, and then what's the difference? Okay, what the rabbi is saying is Zachor is a remez to the Yom, the day, and Shamor is a remez to the night. Why is that? Based on what we learned so far. What did we say about the word Zachor? Can't talk. What did we say about the word Zachor? We discussed last week or 2 weeks ago. We discussed the word Zachor, and we discussed the word Pakod. The word Zechira and Pekidah. And the question we were asking is, why does it say by Sarah, Vadonai pakadet Sarah kasher diber? Why does it use the word by Sarah, the parasha that we read on Rosh Hashanah, of pakad as opposed to Zachor? Why, when Yosef told the Jewish people that in the future what's going to happen, he said, Pakod yifkod Elohim etchem. The language he used was pakod. He didn't say Zachor. So what is the difference between pakod and Zachor? Okay, we said pakod is a time-limited situation, right? So when the Malachim came to Sarah and they said, next year you're going to have a son, okay? The year passed and now pakod, right? Adonai pakad et Sarah. When you're going to redeem them from Egypt, what did he say? Pakod, because there was a time limit to how long they were going to be in the exile. Yes? 400 years. 400. Yadoa teda kiged yezaracha be'eretz lo lahem. The inuv avudum abba me'ot shana. That's what Rashi says. Rashi says it starts with the birth of Yitzchak. Okay, that's what Rashi says. What's that? 210. I get it. But the time they were supposed to be not in a land that is theirs is 400 years. Brit B'nai B'tarim, that is correct, okay? And that's why the Ramban learns out 430. Where does he get 430 from? Because if you look in the Torah, How many years does it say they were in Egypt? 430. What? What are you talking about? Where's 430? You look in Parashat Bo, when they're leaving Egypt, what does it say? Moshav b'nei Israel, the amount of years that the Jewish people spent in Egypt, it says, 430 years. What's 430? It's supposed to be 400.
Including when Yehuda was sent to plant the trees.
No. Why is it 430, not 400? When was the Brit Ben Tarim? How old was Avraham Avinu at the Brit Ben Tarim? 70. That's what, remember we learned that he was, Lech Lecha is not in order, correct? So he was 70 years old at the Brit Ben Tarim. So when God says when they the amount of time they spent in Egypt wasn't from the birth of Yitzchak, he's counting it from when he told Avraham Avinu that his children were going to be 400 years serving. So that's where the Ramban says the 430 comes from. He has two opinions, by the way. That's one opinion. Okay? Okay, so the word Zachor implies, so unlike Pekida, which implies a time-limited situation, the word Zachor implies what? No time, which means unlimited. It's a right unlimited amount of time. That's the word Zachor. Why does that correspond to the Yom? Why does that correspond to Yom? What's the difference between Yom and Laila? Day and night. Okay. Night is absence of light. It's choshech. Right? Now, that doesn't mean it's dark. It just means it's choshech. Yes? Day is light. So day corresponds to something that has a more unlimited. I'll tell you what I mean by that, okay? The sun, as the, not a perfect analogy. Every day is the same. The sun doesn't change. It's every day, it's the same. Full light, yes? Whether we can appreciate the light, if there's clouds or if it's night, the moon is reflecting those lights, the moon is bigger and smaller, but that has nothing to do with the sun. The sun is exactly the same, which means it represents something that has no end. Now, we know it's not correct because all stars have an end. Yes, so it's not a perfect analogy, but the understanding the way the sun has been since creation until now has not changed. Okay, so that represents the Yom. What does change? The Laila. The night changes. How does the night change? The moon. Is it a full moon? Is it new moon? Is it a half moon? Is it a quarter moon? That changes. And that represents the Laila. That represents the Shamor. Now, let's learn this deeper. Zachor is mitzvot aseh. When it says Zachor Yom HaShabbat, Shamor Yom HaShabbat, we learn from here two different things. We learn Shabbat has mitzvot aseh, which is to rest on the Shabbat from creative work. That's a mitzvot aseh. And Shabbat also has a lo ta'aseh. What's the lo ta'aseh? Lo ta'asu kol melacha. You're not lo ta'aseh kol melacha. You're not allowed to do any labor, right? So when a person is violating the Shabbat, there's two problems. Number one, they're violating a lo ta'aseh, and they're not fulfilling a mitzvot aseh, which is to rest from creative work. That's Shabbat, okay? So now coming back. So Zachor represents the aseh, the action. Shamor represents the lo ta'aseh. Okay? Now let me ask you a question. Is the lo ta'aseh have permanence? There's always going to be lo ta'aseh. I don't want to say it like that because the Torah doesn't change. But when the Mashiach comes, and let's say after the resurrection, is there any questions about a lo ta'aseh? Why not? No one is going to violate a lo ta'aseh. No one, because it's like, here's the example given, okay? Take fire. Maybe not a child, an adult. Nobody sticks their finger in a fire. Oh, let me test it out and see what it looks like. Why not? Because you're going to get burned. That's the way the mitzvot were before That's the way the mitzvot were before Adam made the sin. Before Adam made the sin, the lo ta'aseh was like fire. No one puts their hand in fire. So he had to work on it, because remember, before he made the sin and the Yetzer Hara went inside him, the Yetzer Hara was outside of him, right? And he had to be convinced, right? Oh, put your hand in the fire, it's okay, nothing's gonna happen, right? So that's how that works. So the lo ta'aseh has a limitation. Now, there's always going to be lo ta'aseh, but the answer is once the tchiyat hametim happens, no one is going to violate a lo ta'aseh. It's not going to happen.
There won't be any free will.
Therefore, no one is going to violate a lo ta'aseh.
No cops will be moving.
Now, question is, are we still going to do mitzvot aseh? Probably. Why not? Why wouldn't we still put on tefillin? Why wouldn't we still celebrate the holidays? So the zachor has a permanence. The shamor has it's permanent. I want to see the mitzvot ever canceled, chas v'shalom, but there's going to be a time when no one is going to violate lo ta'aseh.
Shamor is lo ta'aseh.
Yeah, that's right. Okay? Let's see if he says that on the bottom. And so we say the Zachor is Keneged El Chai. What is El Chai? Living El, which means living means always alive, right? Always. What is Aleph Daled Nun Yud? Limitation, right? Limitation means not always. Follow? Okay, let's continue on. And that's why it says in the Aseret HaDibrot, in one place in Yitro it says Zachor, and another place in Vayet Hanan it says Shamor. Veda, and you should know, the rabbi says, Veha'amen, and you should believe. Kabbalah Amitit, this is a true tradition. Ki Ma'ayan Kol HaBrachot, the Ma'ayan. What is Ma'ayan? The fountain, the source, okay, of all of the brachot. Right? We discussed this previously. It's the concept of the bracha, and there's the concept of the brecha. Bracha is the blessing. It's the shefa. What is the brecha? That is the source of all of the shefa. That's the brecha. Berecha. In modern Hebrew, the word berecha is a pool, because it's the source of water. This water is a collection of water. That's a pool, berecha. Okay, but in biblical Hebrew, berecha is a source of water. Beracha is the release of that. So berecha is the source of bracha, and the bracha is the shefa. Good. Okay. Ba'ot limidat aleph daled nun yud, the source, the ma'ayan, the fountain of all the brachot that comes to midat aleph daled nun yud, levarechet Yisrael, okay, to give bracha to the Jewish people. Hu hamakom hazeh hanikra zikaron. So what is the source of all of the brachot that get to aleph daled nun yud? It's the yesod. Everything comes to the malchut through the yesod. Whether it's on the right side or whether it's on the left side or it's in the middle, everything comes through the yesod and then goes to the malchut. Yes? Okay. The asod, now he's going to talk about the secret. B'chol makom asher azkir et shemi avo elecha uberachticha. Right? What does that mean? In every place where azkir, what is azkir? You will mention, you will remember my name. Avo elecha berachticha. I will come to you and I will give you beracha. What word is used? The word zachor, azkir. It's from the word zachor, yes? Correct, but again, so does pikida also means remember. But zachor means unlimited.
Hashem is saying, I'll always come to you. You call me, I'm going to be.
Azkir, right? Which means it doesn't use another word. It used the word azkir specifically. Why that word? No, Joseph used pakod yivkod.
Yeah.
That's limitation.
So what's azkir?
Azkir is unlimited.
Oh.
Okay. Zikaron. Continue. Uchtiv. Zecher tzadik livracha. Zecher tzadik livracha. Why zecher? So we see there's a connection between the word zecher and bracha. V'chol makom azkir et shemi avo elechta uberachticha. Okay, and then zecher tzadik livracha. The memory of the tzaddik is for bracha. So we see there's a connection between the word zachor, or the shoresh zayin kaf resh, and the concept of bracha. Why? Because all of the bracha that's received by the malchut, by aleph daled nun yun, is received from the yesod, which is the zachor. Good?
So
don't get it.
The yesod is the zachor.
Yes, there's the zachor and shamor. The yesod is the zachor, and the aleph daled nun yun, the shekhinah, the malchut, is the shamor.
The malchut is has a.
Okay, I'll give you another example.
They define, keep it in my head. So one has a defined term, and the other one is unlimited.
It has the potential unlimited, correct.
So the unlimited is the yesod, the malchut is the limitation.
Correct. I'll give you another example. See if we can think about it this way. Shamor has two meanings. One word, shamor, is to guard, observe, or to guard, to be careful, right? What's another meaning of the word shamor? The aviv shamar et hadavar. Yaakov Avinu hears the dreams of Yosef, and he basically says, am I and your mother going to come and bow down to you? Right? Because he wanted to dispel the notion from the brothers that Yosef was having true dreams. Right? He wanted them to think that these dreams were not true. They were to protect Yosef. But how does the pasuk end? The aviv shamar et hadavar, which means Yaakov Avinu knew these dreams were emet. Knew it. Yes? And it says, Shamar et hadavar, Dr. Rashi. What does Rashi say right then and there? Was mitzapeh, was excited and anticipating when it would come true. So Zachor is a guarantee. It's going to happen for sure. Yes. So in order to have, okay, let's take a banana. A banana. A banana has a fruit and has a peel, right? Now let's say I buy a banana from the store, and right away I take off the peel. How long is that banana going to last before it spoils? Hours. It gets mushy, it gets disgusting, right?
Yeah. Wouldn't it be appealing?
It's not appealing. Very good. So the peel has an aspect of shemirah, protection, right? That's what the peel of the fruit. If you peel the fruit off and you then expose the inner part, what's going to happen? It spoils faster. What's the word in Hebrew for a peel? We use it. What's klipa? The klipa, it's translated as husk. You have corn and you have a husk. It's any peel is called klipa. Correct. But all fruits technically have a klipa. Many fruits, I shouldn't say all. Many fruits have a klipa. What does the klipa do? In some ways, it preserves it. How? How does the klipa preserve the fruit? By limiting the exposure of outside elements to the sensitive part of the fruit. Limitation. That's the klipa. Okay? So the malchut, chas v'shalom, is not the klipa. The malchut is, but it's a limitation that helps to preserve. Therefore, it's called shamor. Okay? Let's continue.
You're saying the other definition of shamar is to preserve rather than to protect.
It's the same idea. Preserve and protect is very similar. Okay? Okay. Continuing on. Zecher tzadik livracha, and another, the sod haganuz, and the secret that is hidden, Adonai zecharanu yivarech. In the Hallel, what do we say? Adonai zecharanu yivarech. So we see 3 Pesukim the rabbi brought here that make a connection between the word zachor and the word bracha.
Could we just go back?
Sure.
You mentioned Yaakov's response to Yosef's dream. How is that relevant with Shamar?
So Yaakov Avinu, the concept of is he's anticipating when it's going to come true. Something that is zachor, okay, something that is, we told the difference between zechira and pekida. What's the difference between zechira and pekida? I think you came a little late, you missed this part. We talked about it last week, okay? Why does it say by Sarah Imenu, V'Hashem pakad et Sarah? Why doesn't it say V'Hashem zachar et Sarah? Good kasha. Why did Yosef, before he died, say pakod yifkod Elohim etchem? Why didn't he say zachor yizkor? Right? What's the difference between the word pakad and the word zachor? Zachor corresponds to the yesod. Pakad corresponds to the malchut. What's the difference? Pakad is when there's a time limitation. Okay, which means when Sarah Imenu was going to give birth to a son, she was told the year before, your son is going to be born this year, next year, this time, right? So the word pakad means there was a promise that was a time-related promise that comes true. Pakod yivkod. Avraham Avinu was told in the Brit Ben Betarim that would be 400 years. Okay, if you got to 210, let's leave that alone. 400 years. Therefore, there's a time expiration. Therefore, there's pakad. Zachor is used when there's no specific time in the future. It's an unlimited. So pakad has a limitation, whereas Zachor does not. Okay, so when Yaakov Avinu was saying over there, "Ve'aviv shamar et hadavar," what does that mean? He's anticipating, because why is he anticipating? What do you anticipate? There's waiting and anticipation. What's the difference? Hebrew, there's the word lehakot, and Hebrew, there's the word letzapot. Big difference. Regarding Mashiach, are we supposed to wait? Or are we supposed to anticipate? Anticipate. Anticipation is active, right? So if I tell you tomorrow, I'm going to give you $1,000, there's a level of anticipation you naturally have because you know it's tomorrow. If I tell you, you're going to get $1,000, I don't know when, it could be next tomorrow, it could be a year, it could be 10 years, you're going to get $1,000. You're just waiting. Now, the goal here is, this is the avodah, the Mashiach, even though it's in the future, and it's been a long time in the future, as we see, there you have to work to anticipate. You can't just wait. You have to be anticipating. So Yaakov Avinu was anticipating when it was going to come because there was a time limitation. What does it mean? Pakod yifkod. Once again, there's a time-limited amount of time they're going to be in the land of Egypt, even though Yaakov was going to be long dead already. But at the end of the day, it was a limited amount of time. Therefore, it's easier to anticipate when it's going to happen. That's the other meaning of the word shamor. I hope the rabbi is going to discuss this in the bottom.
Yaakov knew exactly that was going to be a process.
Of course. You don't think Avraham Avinu told Yitzchak, who then told Yaakov, by the way, 400 years is coming. That's right. Everything was, Avraham didn't hold us back.
How's the human experience in anticipation of worry? I mean, what is the word for worrying in Hebrew?
Lack of faith.
But what in Hebrew? What is
Lack of faith.
Lo amona?
Lack of faith. Worry. Why should a person be worried?
They're getting a bad medical report.
Is it min hashamayim or not?
The human experience.
Okay, but the Torah is coming to get us above the human experience. The Torah is coming to give us an experience that's a human connected to God. That's different than a human that's not connected to God. So if we have true emunah, again, I'm not going to say people don't worry. That is the experience. But when a person is worrying, what does that mean? If you break it down, why is he worried?
Because I guess lack of faith.
People die from worrying.
Again, that's correct. But here's the answer: if a person has emunah shlema, I had a discussion with this over Shabbat with someone. If a person has emunah shlema, they are not worried. They're not anxious either, right? And that means that if a person has worry, which is natural, a person has anxiety, which is natural, what do we how do we fight that? Yeah, you could take Xanax. That's one way to deal with it. And there are some people that need to take it because they have a chemical imbalance in the brain. I'm not knocking people that have an anxiety disorder, okay? But there's a level of anxiety that even non-anxious people sometimes have. Yes? How does one work? What's the remedy for that anxiety? It's emunah. And that means that where am I missing in my emunah, and how do I reestablish that? Why am I concerned about this? We all know we're going to leave this world one day. We want to make sure it could take 5 minutes. It could take, and we want to make sure that when we leave the world, we're better off than when we started. And since Pirkei Avot says a person should not rely on himself until the day before he dies, and since no one knows the day before they die, that means one can never rely. Therefore, a person always has to be assuming that today might be the last day. And if a person thinks like that, it's harder to sin. That's why Masechet Brachot, it says, what happens if the Yetzer Hara comes to a person? And by the way, the Yetzer Hara comes to a person with anxiety. Also, we have to recognize that is a tool. That is a tool of the Yetzer Hara. Worry and anxiety is a tool of the Yetzer Hara. Again, I'm not talking about people that have a mental issue. Not what I'm talking about. You're a normal person with their. What does that mean? The Yetzer Hara comes with anxiety because that weakens the faith. That means that the person needs to be strengthened in the faith, or it gets worse. And now, what's to be anxious about? I used to do this exercise when I was a kid. I would have a test coming, and I wanted to do well. I studied, but generally students who do well are always anxious for a test because they don't think they studied enough. They don't know it well enough, right? And I came up with it. I think I was probably 9, 10 years old. I was really young. And I would say on the way, there's nothing to be nervous about. There's nothing to be nervous about. I would say that over and over again in my head. And guess what? The anxiety went away. Did I know back then that what I was really saying is, again, as a kid, I didn't know this. I didn't. But what was really going on is I was. Exactly. So there's nothing to be nervous about. I believe in God. I have emunah. I trust. What is emunah? It's trust. I trust in God. Whatever's happening. Now, of course, that doesn't mean I have to accept anything that's happening. If a person has a, God forbid, a medical diagnosis that might be a problem, you go see a doctor, you see what you can do to get it mitigated. That doesn't mean I don't trust in God. It means I got to go to the doctor to get it taken care of. But what does it say in Masechet Brachot? It says, if a person comes into contact with the Yetzer Hara, right, what should you do? Moshchehu lebet hamidrash. Drag him to the study house, because there's a Yetzer Hara and then there's the antidote. What's the antidote for the Yetzer Hara? Torah. That is the antidote. Barati Yetzer Hara, barati lo Torah tavlin. I created the Yetzer Hara, and I created an antidote for the Yetzer Hara. It's called the Torah. So when a person immerses himself in Torah, what happens? The Yetzer Hara goes away. Moshcheu. It says, bring him to the Bet HaMidrash. What's that? Always with you. Always with you. And when you're in the Bet Midrash, he's still with you when you're in the Bet Midrash. How is he with you in the Bet HaMidrash? I discussed this yesterday in my class. How does the Yetzer Hara come to a person when they're in the Bet HaMidrash?
Well, your thoughts.
This is letting the Yetzer Hara in the Bet HaMidrash. Text messages, YouTube videos. And the other one sometimes people have, it's called Spielkes in the Genekte Gezoink, as we say in Yiddish, yes? There's some people, they come to daven, and they can't sit still. They're walking up and down the hall, they're walking here, walking there, taking trips over here. They say it helps their concentration.
Yeah, but it's very distracting to the rest of us.
Let's understand that. Why are they doing all that walking? That's because they have this attention deficit, right? They can't sit still. Okay, now let's change the subject. The person is on the witness stand. because he's been accused of some type of a terrible crime.
You said this yesterday.
Is the judge going to allow him to get up and walk around and to chase him around? Sit down or you're in contempt of court. Guess what? No matter what you're going on, you're sitting down, which means at the end, and that's not for 10 minutes. That's usually if a person's on the witness stand, it's going to be an hour, 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Then you get a lunch break, then you come back, okay? So at the end of the day,
Otherwise, you'll be pacing in a cell.
exactly, you'll be pacing up and down in the cell. So at the end of the day, we use as an excuse when a person's praying, if they're motivated and anticipating the connection to God, they don't need to be walking around. People are walking around because they're bored, because they don't understand the value of prayer. When a person comes to a Torah shiur and can't sit still, now it might be that seat's uncomfortable, so you got to get up and walk around. You don't want to get a DVT, I get it, okay? But to get the blood flow, that's different. That's not. The person's already sitting for an hour and a half, right? So if you think about on Shavuot night, Baruch Hashem, I had the zechut to give a class over here. I started at 11:30 and I finished at about 5:15.
You're on fire.
How many times did I get up?
None.
Never.
You remember?
Straight through. When a person is and there were some people that sat there for hours, right? When a person is motivated in teaching or learning something, they are motivated. So what is it? It's a lack of motivation, which means they don't understand the value of prayer. They don't understand the value of learning. So what do we need to do in that circumstance? Give them an anxiety medication? No. Let me tell you what's happening when you're learning. Let me tell you what's happening when you know there's nothing you could be doing better in the world right now than davening.
Davening or learning?
If it's time for Shacharit, yes, time for Shacharit. Like, well, it's 9 o'clock today when we decided to come and pray Shacharit. It's supposed to nets, right? At 9:01, there is nothing you could be doing better in the world than praying. Up until 9:55 or whenever we finished.
I don't know you, but I'm always, every time I'm praying, I'm also fighting with the Israel trying to distract me.
Then you got to wake up earlier than him.
Or going faster.
6:30.
Then you got to wake up earlier than him. Let's see what I mean by that.
Going faster, you might.
You recognize, first aspect is to recognize the tactics of the Yetzer Hara. The Chafetz Chaim, it says about the Chafetz Chaim, who was a very old man at this point. Basically, I think he lived in Radin. Radin is a place where the winters, you can imagine, are very cold. So he wants to go to Minyan in the morning, goes to the nets, okay? And he wakes up and it's pitch black in the middle of winter. It's cold outside, freezing. So he hears a voice in his head saying, Yisro Meir, you're 80 years old. You go to shul every day.
91 when that happened.
91, okay. You know the story then. Okay. You know what? There's another minyan in another hour or two. Go back to sleep. It'll be a little warmer. So he starts thinking to himself, who's talking to me? And he realizes it's the Yetzer Hara inside. And he says, wait a minute. You are 5,007, what at that time was 5,600 years, right? You're older than me by a lot. And you woke up earlier than me to think about how you're going to prevent me from going to daven? Okay, that's it. I'm going.
You already did your job. That's what he said.
Baruch Hashem.
You did your job
I'd love to see,
already.
where is that story?
You did 5,000.
I've only heard
working on it, but
I've
you have
only
to
heard
read.
that story. I didn't see it in writing. Where is the story in writing? Do you know where it is?
Yes, in one of the books I read most of these books.
Okay, good. So which one? Do you know which one?
No, I am not you, Ralph.
So once again, we come back and what do we say? If we wake up earlier, I don't mean you have to wake up earlier, but some people are awake and they're still sleeping, right? Just because a person wakes up at 6:30 doesn't mean they're awake. They can still be sleeping in the
That's why I watch.
checking the emails and checking the YouTube videos and seeing what happened in Fox News overnight, all that kind of stuff. I'm speaking from personal experience, okay? So just because you wake up early doesn't mean you're awake. That's why the Shulchan Aruch says, Yitkaber ka'ari. Right? A person should wake up like it says namer, like a namer, which is a leopard. Why a leopard? Because a leopard is the fastest creature, that can run faster than any other creature in the world, correct? Maybe a thoroughbred horse can run faster, right? But the thoroughbred,
He is the fastest.
But the thoroughbred can only run for a short distance at that speed. The leopard can maintain a high speed for a much longer distance, right? So that's why it's namer. Yitgaber kanamer, right? No, it's gaber ka'ari. Let's see. Haver akal kanamer. That's what it is. Let's see what it is. Let's look at the exact lashon. It's at the end of the. 1 second. Yehuda ben Tema Omer. Heve az kanamer. Be strong like the namer. The kal kanesher. And light like the nesher. Verat katzvi. And run like a tzvi, a deer. The gibor ka'ari. And brave like the ari, the lion. Lasot retzon avicha shebashamayim. Okay, anyway. Okay, let's continue on. So that's what the rabbi said. So we see there's a connection between the word zachor and the word bracha. That's what the rabbi said. Zecher tzadik livracha, Adonai zecharanu yevarech. And he brings another pasuk. Bechol makom askir asher askir et shemi avo elecha berachticha. So he brings 3 pasukim to show there's a direct connection between the concept of zachor and bracha. Okay? You with me?
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's look on the bottom. Yom HaShabbat keneged shte midot halalu. The day of Shabbat is vis-a-vis the 2 midot we discussed. Midah number 1 is the Yesod, and the midah number 2 is the Malchut. B'Shabbat keshemevia sfirat bina ve'oro yitbarach. On Shabbat, when the sfira of the bina, which is of course the source of all of the or, right, from the Gimel Rishonim, yes, from the Gar, the bina brings the or, okay, mitpashet ba'olam. It spreads out in the world. Umistalakim hahestarim, and all of the things that are hidden are removed. V'naaseh yichud yisod malchut. So this is what you were saying before, Steve, that there's on Shabbat there's a yichud between the yisod and the malchut. Okay.
Global level.
On a global level.
You can feel it too.
Global level. Ve'heyot ve'yichud banui mizachar ve'nekeva. Because in order to have yichud, you have to have 2 things. You have to have zachar, and you have to have nekeva. Male, female, giver, receiver. Yes? That's called yichud. Just a man alone, there's no yichud. Just a woman alone, there's no yichud. In order to have yichud, you have to have masculine, feminine. Yes? Birds and the bees. We got that covered? Okay, just verifying. I wasn't sure. What?
You need the keli.
You also need the or.
What?
Okay, in order to have yichud, you need or and keli. We're all using the same terms. It's all similar terms. You need or and keli, right? Okay, very good. The yichud banui mizachar v'nekeva, v'lachen beyom HaShabbat, on the day of the Shabbat, yesh bo shnei giluyim. There are 2 revelations. There are 2 things that are revealed. Shel kedushato yitbarach, of the holiness of God. What is that? Hagilui shel hayom hanikra zachor. The gilui in the day is called zachor. Keneged el chai. Shemoshech et hashpa'at kedusha, and the el chai draws the on Shabbat. The el chai draws the hashpa'ah, the abundance, the influence, the holy influence. Min habina. It comes from the bina. Yes. Okay. The gilui shel halayla, and the gilui of the night. Hanikra shamor, which is called shamor. Hamoshech the kedusha keneged malchut, and the shamor is moshech the kedusha for the malchut. Kedita bezohar, like it says in the Zohar. Tachazeh, come and see. Shabbat laila v'yoma. Shabbat is night and day. Zachor v'shamor. Yu kehada, they are one. When there's yichud, okay? Kedita bezohar. Oh, sorry, I did it already.
Night and day are one when
night represents the nekeva, and the day represents the zachar.
Being a little new, just
Good, good.
maybe,
Night represents the feminine.
Okay,
Day represents the masculine. So now, why is it vayerev vayivoker yom echad? Why is the feminine first?
and that comes in first.
Why did God create the world that way? It didn't have to be that way.
He did. Why? Okay, that's a good question. Why did God do it that way?
Why did he do it that way?
Because
What's first? Choshech or or? Yes. Choshech is first. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz ve'haaretz hayta tov v'vo v'choshech al pnei tehom v'ruach Elohim merachefet al pnei hamayim v'yomer Elohim hi'or vayi'or. First there was choshech, and then there was or. Now, is that really how it was? No. First there was only or. There was no choshech. But the first aspect of creating the world, what is the first aspect of creating the world? Allah b'mahashava, Allah b'irtzono. It went up in his ratzon to create a world. What is the first thing he did? Come on, this is Etz Chaim 101. What is the first thing God did in the creative process of the world? Allah b'irtzono, that's what it says. Allah b'irtzono went up in his ratzon that he wanted to have a world. He had a ratzon to have a world.
he creates Torah as a blueprint.
No, that's not what the Etz Chaim says. Meaning,
A concept of limitation.
Tzimtzem et atzmo.
Simpson.
The tzimtzum, what is that? That's darkness. Not really. It's darkness that holds the light that's needed, but vis-a-vis the light around its darkness.
Is the implication that the Simpson took place before or after the Torah is
No, the Torah is before.
before? So the whole plan is
The Torah is part of, what is the Torah? Okay, I did this in the beginning class on Shavuot night. What is the Torah? Break it down to the most basic concept. What is the Torah based on what we just discussed?
How much sofer? 5 books?
No. I'm not looking. I'm looking.
God's plan for the world. It's
a blueprint.
I'm going to give you exactly what it is. You ready?
Schematic diagram.
His revealed ratzon in the world. The Torah encompasses the revealed ratzon of God in the world. On a basic level, what do you have to do to have a connection? What do you do? And you do that, you don't have a connection. This is the ratzon. The 613 mitzvot are connections. What do you mean connections? By fulfilling his ratzon, you connect to him. Yes? That's the basis of the Torah. Now, also, the Torah is a blueprint for the world. It's not only his revealed ratzon for each individual human, it's his revealed ratzon for the entire history. That's the Torah, which is really the same thing. It's his revealed ratzon in every aspect of the creation. That's the Torah. So, of course, Allah b'irtzono, what does that already mean? B'irtzono, what does that mean? Okay, there's already God already has a desire, a ratzon, to reveal his ratzon. That's called the Torah. Now he has to make a keli, a utensil to receive that. The beginning process is creating a keli. I don't want to say it like that because it seems to me it's not really a keli. It's all or. It's just or and no or. Okay, or less or. It's not a keli. Kelim don't happen until 1 or 2 steps after. Okay, I don't want to get into that now. Okay, so we understand that the tzimtzum is darkness vis-a-vis the light. Okay, night represents galut. There can be no redemption if there is no exile. Okay? Why is it that God, when he first meets Abraham at the age of 70 years old, Abraham says one question. God makes all these promises to him. I'm going to give you all, I'm not going to give it to you. I'm going to give it to your descendants because you're going to die. You're going to die in a healthy old age. And then your fourth generation is going to come back here. Right? What does God tell Abraham when Abraham asked the question, how do I know that I will inherit it? Bama eda ki irashena. What's he really asking?
It's going to come true.
No, that he's doubting God. Wait a minute, hold on. It come true. God just said to you, I'm going to give this land to your descendants. Abraham says, really, God, you're going to give it to my descendants? That's what Abraham's doing now. Careful. What is he saying? Bama eda ki irashena. Now put on the Kabbalah hat. Bama eda. What's going to be the experience? Meaning what?
I will have a connection. I will be.
I'm 70 years old, and I've learned one thing in this world, Abraham is saying. You get nothing for nothing. Anything they get you for free, chances are doesn't have a lot of value. You're telling me that my children are going to inherit this land? There has to be some payment. What's the payment? It's not free. How are they going to earn it? Earn it. That's what Abraham's asking.
Is that from the exile, from everything?
That's how God created the world. How did God create the world? Why didn't God create the world perfect? God created the world imperfect, yes? So we can finish the job. Why?
If we were to finish, everyone would be angels.
To earn. So it's not the bread of shame. It's not na'amad de kisufa. When you don't earn something and you get it for free, first of all, you never appreciate it. And number two, it's embarrassing. Yerushalmi says, nowadays it doesn't work because the beggars have arrogance, okay? But in the olden days, beggars, it says in Yerushalmi, the beggar cannot look in the face of the giver. Why? Why can't a normal man who is asking for a donation look into the face of the giver? Because he's humiliated that he can't do it on his own. This is how God created man. God did not create man to be a beggar. God created man to work, earn his keep.
You're saying now the beggars aren't embarrassed because they all.
No, because they learn in yeshiva to be a beggar.
You have to learn to be a beggar?
Yeah, they say,
You
it's
carry
Purim.
with the blue
Purim's coming in a couple of days. Go out, knock on doors, and beg for money for the yeshiva. That's what we're teaching. That's what we're teaching young boys to be beggars. Why are we teaching young boys to be beggars? I have a better idea. Send out the Rebbes.
To be Rebbes?
No, send out the Rebbes to do the begging. Why are we teaching children to be beggars? What is that?
Because they don't have shame.
They're not going to have shame, and then they miss the whole lesson. At least the Rebbe can say, you know what? I'm going to beg for the yeshiva. I'm a little bit embarrassed that I got to do this, but you know what? Yeshivas need money. They go out and they beg. Okay, but what, children? We mutarim lachem, mutarim lachem, mutarim lachem, shirurim lachem, en kan kabbalot, en kan avonot. Really? You teach children Torah. The Torah is not given for beggars. That is not the way of the Torah. Now, that does mean there aren't beggars. There aren't aniyim. What is the purpose of there to be ani?
For the person to learn about
For the person to give. So there could be yichud. Giver, receiver. If there's no receiver, then there's no giver. So there's always going to be aniyim. But the Torah's perspective is what?
There should be as least as possible.
Okay, I discussed this on Shavuot. I think it was maybe the day before Shabbat. A person comes to you to borrow money. And they're borrowing money right before the Shemitah. What happens in the Shemitah? All loans are canceled. Forget about the Pros Bowl. Leave that alone. That was a rabbinic later on, right? All loans are canceled. The guy comes to you and says, I need to borrow money. And you say to yourself, the Torah is going to tell you what you're thinking. What is the Torah thing? What's going to in your mind? You're going to say, wait a minute, in a month from now is going to be Shemitah, which means it's going to be evil in my eye that what? I'm going to give him a loan right now, and in a month he doesn't have to pay it back. And you're going to say no, and then he's going to call out to me, and I'm going to consider that a sin for you. That's what the Torah says. Next pasuk, naton titen, you have to give him. Now, if you don't have, you don't have. But if you have to give. Why is he asking for a loan? Why doesn't he just say, can I get a charity of $10,000? I mean, really, you think effectively, if he's asking it right before the Shemitah and there's no Pros Bowl, it's the same thing.
It has more dignity.
More dignity. It's maintaining the dignity of the ani. So the ani comes to the person and asks for it before the Shemitah. Why? Because he doesn't think he's going to be able to pay it back.
But that's sort of like
It's not a loan. It's charity.
from the giver.
It's dressed.
Could he ask for collateral?
No, you can, and then you have to return it to him every night. And if you don't return it to him every night, God doesn't like that either.
So what is
Okay?
collateral for?
You want collateral? You're entitled to take collateral, but you got to return it to him every
So
night.
what's the point? But
I don't know what the point is. Maybe there is no point. The point is you're not loaning money. The point is when you give a loan, you're really not loaning it. You are giving it. And that's all. Why is there no ribis? Why is ribis not allowed? Not allowed to pay it, not allowed to charge it. Why not? Because when you're loaning money, you're not supposed to get benefit from it. Wow. What a concept. Your brother needs help. He says he wants a loan. You know he's not going to pay it back. What's that called in your mind? Charity.
for the giver, it's charity. For the loanee, it's a loan. But isn't he sort of lying to himself? If
A lot of
he's
people,
asking
that's
for a
what
loan.
loan-
We're
he's not planning to
missing
pay it back.
the point. You're thinking about it too
Logically.
logically.
Okay.
We're
Dress
trying
as a
to
loan,
protect
the
the dignity of the
loanee.
receiver. So the Torah couches it as a loan.
Yeah, give me sounds clear.
Comes to me and wants to borrow money. I say, you know what? How about this? How about if I give you a job, I employ you? Wow, when do I sign up? Right? I'll give you a job. I'll teach you a trade. You can go out on your own. My goal is to teach you a trade so you can go out on your own. Oh, what's the problem? Oh, competition, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's America. That's America. Okay? As a Jew, your brother. Okay, your son. Your son, you're supposed to teach him a trade according to his, right? Are you worried that your son is going to compete with you?
No.
No. As a matter of fact, you'd love your son to compete with you. This way he could retire early and he could take over the business. Why is it different if your son or if it's your brother? It's a internal nourishkeit. It's nonsense. It's influence from the goyim on the outside. That's the problem.
Rabbi, what was your answer? You asked the question, why did Abraham question?
He didn't question.
And
He wanted to know in what merit are they going to
Right.
earn the land of Israel. Okay, good.
And was the answer?
The answer is they're going to be slaves.
That's what I thought. Okay. Yeah. They're going to pay the price.
They have to have suffering.
They're going to pay the price.
The land of Israel is only acquired through suffering. That's what it says. There are three things that are acquired through suffering. Torah, land of Israel. There's one other one. I'm blanking on it. Sorry. Shalom, maybe. Could be. I don't know. Hopefully it's not suffering. It's not supposed to be suffering. It's self-work. That's what it is. Okay. So the Shabbat is about the yichud of the Yesod and the Malchut. The Yesod is drawing from the brecha, which is the Binah. The brecha, the source, the makor of the bracha is the binah. The Yesod is the source of the bracha for the Malchut, yes? But where's the Yesod get the bracha from? From the Binah. Okay, let's continue on. Tachazeh Shabbat Laila v'Yomah Zechor v'Shamor Yuki Chada. Day and night should be like one. Ba'al Ketiv, on this it is written, Zachor Yom HaShabbat L'Kadasho, Ketiv Shamor Yom HaShabbat. What do we say? Zachor v'Shamor b'dibur echad. What does that mean? Zachor v'Shamor b'dibur echad. Hishmi'anu el ha'meyuchad. Where do we say that? L'chadodi. Rav Alkabetz, he wrote L'chadodi. What did he say? Zachor v'Shamor b'dibur echad. Hishmi'anu el ha'meyuchad. Adonai echad u'shmo echad. L'shem u'tiferet v'litila. That's the Syrian, yeah. Yerushalmi. So, Zachor v'Shamor b'dibur echad. What does that mean?
Your word should be.
No. It's not what it means. Wow, something we read every Friday, we don't know. Zachor v'Shamor b'dibur echad. We have two luchot. Rishonot, Achronot. We have Yitro and Va'ad Chanan. When the Jewish people, when God gave over Zachor et Yom HaShabbat L'Kadasho, and then by the Luchot Shniot, he gave Shamor et Yom HaShabbat L'Kadasho, yes? But there was only one time God gave the Aseret HaDibrot. When was that? B'Ma'amad Sinai. So what does that mean? Moshe Rabbeinu, according to the opinion, say he only heard the Jewish people only heard the first two, right? There's an opinion that said they heard all 10. There was one utterance that had two words. Zachor v'Shamor b'dibur echad. Which means there was one utterance from the divine, and that one utterance from the divine, we heard two different things. Shamor v'Zachor.
The same voice said Shamor v'Zachor at the same time?
It is not understandable logically. This is prophetic. In prophecy, you can have two opposite things happening at the same time. Like fire and ice.
But if it's
The
a
barad.
divine call, of course you can say Shazak.
Okay,
because
Cole,
mouth can't say that.
you're once again, you're trying to think of it as if your ears heard it. And that's the mistake. When God talks to the prophets, the communication is not going through their ears and their ossicles into their brain. The communication is going directly to their
Cerebral.
Forget about the part of the brain. It's going directly to the neshama. And the neshama is able to hear both at the same time.
And that's what the Jews heard. So the Jews had prophecy for those two times.
They had prophecy. Panim el panim, dibarti imachem. What does that mean? It says, I spoke to you face to face. What does that mean? Panim el panim dibarti imachem. Who else do we know speaks to God? Panim Moshe Rabbeinu. So on Ma'amad Har Sinai, the Jewish people, according to some opinions, had the same level of prophecy as Moses.
Okay,
Meaning, they weren't sleeping, they weren't in a trance, they were awake, and God was talking to them. But because they didn't properly prepare or weren't properly prepared, what happened to them? They died.
They didn't follow those things?
I don't understand.
How did they not prepare themselves?
They weren't prepared. They died. Moses didn't die. How does a person prepare not to die if God's talking to them?
And go to the mikvah.
No, stop. That was for no. That was for the woman. That wasn't for the man. How did Moses prepare himself for communication with God?
Not eating.
On Harabai, you go to the mikvah.
Not eating.
You mean every time he spoke to him?
Okay, let's go back to the beginning. Goes to the sneh, right? And God's talking to Moshe Rabbeinu with the sneh. He's already full-fledged prophet. Full-fledged, right? 100%. How did he do that? How did he get to that level? Anav mikol adam ashel pnei adama. That's how he got to that level. What did we say this morning? For a person to be, he worked on himself. He realized that the key to a close relationship with God is anava, humility. Humility. That is the key to a relationship with God. The reason why we can't hear God is because we allow ourselves to get in the way. When you're not there, then you hear God's communication. The more you are there, the more there's a you, the more there's an I, an id, the more there is ish, then the communication is ng. When there's nobody there, then you can hear God.
How can you be nobody there?
You view yourself as nobody.
I know that, but how can you feel that you are nobody?
Moses did it
I'm not
every day. Okay, right. Well, that's why Moses had a very high level of prophecy, self-nullification. That requires work. I'll give you an example. You don't even realize we're doing this, okay? In the tefillah, you say Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Yes? Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. What's the next thing you do? Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha b'chol nafshecha b'chol me'odecha. What are you supposed to be thinking during that? I love God with all of my heart, and with all my soul, and with all of my money. Heart, Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Hara. Soul, even if he's taking my soul away from me. Me'odecha, with all of my possessions. What's that called? Self-nullification.
So you don't,
But
there's nothing
it's
left.
might. How do you get might in possessions?
1 second. Because a person's might is their possessions. People feel very strong when they got plenty of money. Look at Elon Musk. What more do you need to say? Okay. And Donald Trump, for that matter. Same idea. He's president also. He's not just a rich guy. He's not the president, right? Elon Musk is just a rich guy. And he thinks he's going to take on the president. That's pretty stupid.
What he's doing to save his car.
I don't care what he's doing. That's pretty stupid.
That's stupid.
That's stupid. You're not going to win. You're not going to win.
So smart, but yet there's
He's got a screw loose. Give me a break. The guy's got a screw loose.
So people
maybe that enemy.
I don't want to get off topic. What are we saying?
Talking about how your possessions you have to be willing to.
And it's feel- and
Right before we say Kriyat Shema, what do? Leman, wait, hold on a second. Habocher ba'amo Yisrael. What is ahava?
Love.
Love. Whose love?
Hashem, Baruch atah
His
Hashem,
love for us
Sabocher,
and our love for him. What is, when you see the word ahava, what do you think yourself right away? Willingness to die on Kiddush Hashem.
So he says, he does.
Leman Shemo be'ahava. What does that mean? Look at your Sidur over there, Charlie. You look right in there. What does it say? A person should have in mind to be moser himself on Dalad Mitot Bedin. Sekila Serefa Hereg Vahenek. Multiple places in the Tefillah where a person is supposed to be working on themselves to say, if given the opportunity to submit to death for the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, I'm willing to do it.
But I always understood that this is love from Hashem to us.
No. What is that called? That is called anava. What is Moses' character trait par excellence? How does he show his anava? Erase me from the book. You're going to destroy them? Take me out. God goes to Noach and says, Noach, I want to destroy the world. Build the teva so you can save your family. What does Noach do? He built the teva. God goes to Moses and says, I'm going to wipe out this people. What does Moses say? Take me out first. What's that called? Self-nullification. That's anava.
So Noah didn't have it.
Moses goes out. Day number 1 as an adult. The Torah tells us. What does he do? He sees an Egyptian hitting a Jew. What does he do? Vayifen kovako. Vayar ki enish. He sees through his Ruach HaKodesh that this Egyptian is not going to amount to anything. And he kills him with the Shem. Does he care if the Egyptians are going to catch him, put him in jail, and execute him? No.
You said the first day I got to say he was 13 years old.
I don't know 13. I don't know how old he is. Torah doesn't say. Maybe he was 13. I think the Midrash says he was 13. Whatever. He became Gadol. It says Vayigdal Moshe, right? Which means he's no longer nursing. We go from nursing Tu Vaigdal. He becomes an adult, whatever that means. And what is the first thing he does? He kills an Egyptian. Is he saying to himself, oh my God, what's going to happen if I kill him? Who's going to protect me? He doesn't care. A Jew is being hit by an Egyptian. That Egyptian dies. Self-sacrifice.
Great. Bihava. So Rabbi Mansour, in his book that he gave out, he points out, he says, what's the most important word in the Amidah according to the Ari? And he says, the Ari says it's Bihava, to understand.
Nowhere in the Shemona Esrei does it say, if I'm not mistaken, Yir'ah.
It says Bihava.
Nowhere. It's hinted to Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor Ve'anora. Gibor is Yir'ah. Okay, it's hinted to. Okay, but the word Ahava, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava means what? Willingness to die in Kiddush Hashem. That is the ultimate, the willingness to give up everything for the honor of God. And again, chas v'shalom, none of us should be tested, okay? But the thought process, and every time a person does that, what happens? They go up. It's like a springboard for rising in the heavens. When the more a person cancels themselves out, the closer they get to God. That's exactly right. It's a Hasidic concept, but we do discuss it.
But it's hinted.
That's what the Hasidim call it. Bittul. It's not what it's called. Here it's called willingness to die in Kiddush Hashem. You want to call it bittul? That's fine. That's bittul. At the end of the day, willingness to die in Kiddush Hashem. What is the ultimate love displayed for God? Willingness to die in Kiddush Hashem. Huge. Right?
So how do you show your willingness, but not actually die, to go up in the springboard, and you'll live another day?
You think about, if I was challenged right now with Sikila Sefa Herek Vechenek, or to be worshiping Avodah Zarah.
Someone is forcing me to do the 3 cardinal sins. I would rather take the skill.
That's what it says. That's what it in Shmo Yava.
Think that, but then when it comes down to it, you'd be like,
well, if you don't practice it, guess what? When the time comes, you're not going to be ready. What I say? What did I say? I said they didn't prepare themselves before they. Moshe Rabbeinu was prepared when God spoke to him at the sneh. He was already there. And is what?
Oh, he prepared by killing the Egyptian.
The preparation wasn't killing the Egyptian.
How did he prepare?
The preparation is not caring what was going to happen to him if he killed the Egyptian. Didn't care.
Where did he learn?
Did he ask any questions?
No.
Did he think about it?
No.
Did he act immediately? No questions. No trial. What was Romach?
The spear. Pinchas did the same thing. Didn't think.
Okay. That's Kanai. That's Kanai. Pinchas for that Gabriti Shalom. We'll learn that in a couple of weeks now. But Moshe Rabbeinu, his prophecy is because he was a anav mikol ha'adam asher pnei adama. He trained himself.
Where did he?
He trained himself. A person who truly understands God and the greatness of God naturally will want to work on their anava.
Living in Egypt.
Naturally.
Center of the world. How did he learn?
I don't see why this is complicated.
Growing up in Pharaoh's house, but
his perspective on the world was different than everybody else's.
Just by being.
The Jewish people were crying that they were slaves. Yes? What was Moshe Rabbeinu? What was his whole goal? Redemption.
Well, that was after this. I mean, he didn't know what his goal was.
Okay, yeah, what is it? Pakod yifkod Elohim etchem. They all knew there was going to be redemption. Do we want to have the redemption later or right now? So how do we get the redemption right now?
He knew Yosef was there. He knew we can't leave.
How do we get the redemption right now? Same thing now. No difference. What is holding up the redemption right now?
People, the rabbis.
How? What's holding up the redemption? We're not doing it for the right reasons. I shouldn't say none of us. Many of us are not doing it for the right reasons. What's the right reason?
What is it?
To reveal Yud Kei Vav Kei in the world.
They're doing it for money. They're doing it for power.
That
prestige,
is, or peer
politics.
pressure, or membership in the shul, or I want to have friends, so I come to shul. And here they don't talk in shul, so I don't talk in shul. All kinds of other motivatia. I don't want to go to hell. I want to have world to come. I want to have parnasa. All these motivatias. The goal is lema'an shemo be'ahava. I'm performing and doing the Torah because I love God, because I don't count. He asked me to do something. I am eved. Whatever the king asks, I do. And I do it because the king wants me to reveal his name in the world. And I'm not a hold back. If someone asks me a question, why don't you believe in Jesus? I give them a reason. And if they want more reasons, I give them more reasons. I'm not embarrassed to say why I'm not a Muslim. I don't have to hold back. Well, I don't want to talk about it, because it's in the middle of work. Okay? Yeah, okay. I'm not going to talk about it in work. Call me afterwards. We'll have a discussion. We have to be confident. We are right. We have the secret. We have it. No one else. How do we display that when we see a fellow Jew that's off the derech? How do we approach that? Beat him over the head? No. Make friends. Exactly. My brother. And we do it for the boss. I'm not doing it for me. I'm not doing it for him even. I'm doing it for the boss. That's called L'Shem Shamayim. That's L'Shem. Why is it L'Shem Shamayim? What Shem? Yud Kei Vav Kei. Very simple. And why is it Lishma with a Mapike, which is feminine possessive? Yud Kei Vav Kei is masculine. I mean, there's a hey and a hey that's feminine, but most is masculine. Yeah, the Vav is masculine. What is Lishma? What's the Mapike feminine? The Shekhinah. Everything to be causing a gilui of the Shekhinah in the world. But the first thing you have to do is you have to make sure the Shekhinah is inside you. V'asu lemikdash v'shachanti betocham. And how does the mikdash come inside you? With ava, which anava, the willingness to give everything for God. It's work we all have to do. But Moses was ready when he was 13 or 18, however old was when he killed the Egyptian. And then he has to wait another 40 years. Why does he have to wait another 40 years? He's ready. Moses is ready. The second day, he realized, well, he might be ready. They're not ready. Why? Because two Jews are fighting. Oh, they're not ready yet. It's going to take another couple of years. 40 years later, he goes to the sneh. Or maybe, no, 62 years. If he was 18, that's 62, because he was 80 at the sneh. What does that also show? Patience.
Patience, according to you, that's one of your shiurs, is the hardest of the 13 midot.
Patience. That's the hardest. That's right. But once Moses is the leader, then there's no patience. Until that, they have to be ready, which means Moses realized that they were not ready to leave Egypt. So they got to be ready. If they're not ready, they're not leaving. And also, it wasn't yet 400 years, right? Okay, according to Rashi, it was. And that's why when Moses is on the mountain, what does he say? God comes to him and says, I want you to rescue the Jewish people. He says, me? Who am I? I'm nobody. What's that called?
Humility.
Anava. God, the master of the universe, is coming to talk to him and say, by the way, you the man. And he's saying, no, I'm not the man. He's arguing with God because of he doesn't think he's worthy. And then he asks, what's his name? Who cares what his name? He asks, what are the people going to ask what's his name? What am I going to say? He wants to know. It's early. Why are we leaving now? They still have more time. So God tells him why. Unlimited mercy. Why? Because they don't deserve to leave, but I'm taking them out because I can't leave them there anymore. Okay, let's continue on inside here.
Yeah,
So
Abraham was humility too. It was nothing but the dirt beneath his feet. And
there are
Moshe
three.
went one step further. Said, I was
There are three categories of humility: David, Abraham, and Moshe. Abraham said, "Va'anochi afar va'efer." I am afar, dust, efer, ash. Okay, which is very low. But what's the difference? Afar ve'efer. Afar, dirt, has a future. I put a seed in the dirt. What happens? It grows a plant. Efer has a past. It was something before. Now it's ash. So therefore, they have a past, and one has a future. Okay, that's afar ve'efer. David HaMelech said, "Va'anochi tolat velo ish." I'm a worm and not a man. Worm, very low, yes, but worm makes silk. Silk has a lot of value, a lot of benefit. Moshe Rabbeinu, what does he say? V'nachnu ma. Wow, that means I am zero. That's lower than Abraham and lower than David. And that's why the Torah was given through Moshe, not through Abraham and not through David. Okay, coming back to Zachor v'Shamor, okay? Ubazor Parshat Mishpatim aval misitra de Chesed, from the side of the Chesed, Kutsha Brichu Zachor. Ushchinte Shamor. Kmo de ukmua mare matnitin Zachor leZacha v'Shamor lekala. Wow. Okay? So now the Zohar is going to say exactly what we said before. It says the Sitra of the Chesed, which is the giving, that's the Zachar, yes? Kutsha Brichu is Zachor. Ushchinte is Shamor, and the Shekhinah is Shamor. Kama de'ukmua mare matnitin, like it says in the Mishnah, right? Zachor la Zachar v'Shamor la Kala. Zachor is for the Zachar, and the Shamor is for the Kala. The Biur, explanation. Shamor hu binyan hakeli. Shamor is the building, is the structure of the keli. Milashon aviv shamar et hadavar.
How do you know it's going to say that?
I didn't,
You're talking about.
and I didn't look at this ahead of time. V'aviv shamar et hadavar hakeli hu ha'amadat hamitziut b'tzipiyah lekabel. Wow, the keli is basically the reality of anticipating receiving.
You're building the structure for receiving.
Build the structure, and there's anticipation for something to come in. Wow.
But Yaakov is masculine. Why didn't?
1 second.
Rachel or Leah say that?
The kol davar me'olam elyon lo yarad ela im nicha b'tzipiyah lekabel oto. And now we just answered the Brit Ben Abitarim also. The only way things come down to the world is when the creatures of the world are anticipating it. Avraham, bama eda ki irashena. How are we going to make sure that my descendants are anticipating the redemption? How? They're going to be slaves. They're going to be working. They're going to be serving. They're going to have a difficult time. And then they're going to be begging for the Mashiach to come.
Don't they need to build a keli to receive the?
When did the redemption finally come in Egypt?
After the 14th?
They were praying for 80 years. When did the redemption come?
Only after they made it hard.
Vayamot melech Mitzrayim. Vaye'anichu b'nei Yisrael min ha'avodah vayiz'aku. That's what it says. They were suffering from the labor, and then it says vayiz'aku. What does that word mean? No, that's after. Vatal shavatam el ha'elohim min ha'avodah. Yeah, he has to go. Vatal shavatam. What allowed the prayer to finally go to the Shamayim is what? Vayiz'aku. For the other 86 years, what were they doing? Tze'aka. Tze'aka in Hebrew. They weren't doing ze'aka.
Wailing.
What is the difference between tze'aka and za'aka? Very subtle. Remember, these words, the letters are switchable. Zas sherat, the zayin, right? And the sadi are switchable because they're from the same. Zayin and sadi, they're from the same place in the mouth. That's why the way the Ashkenazim say that sadi, tz is wrong. It's th, like a zayin and a sadi.
Because the Z in German is tza.
Very nice. It's a tz. Okay, but that's not Hebrew.
Well, Ashkenaz.
But that's not Hebrew. Hebrew is the. So the same way you say a z in your mouth with your tongue is the same way you have to say the sadi. It's not a. It's like a s with a lisp. Sa, sadi, sadik, sadik katamar yifrah.
You have to put your tongue behind your top front teeth.
Correct, but not a ts because when you're doing a ts, it's not the tongue. It's sort of a tongue plus it's the teeth itself, right? Z, when you say zayin, your tongue is not touching your teeth at all, correct? So when you do a sadi, your tongue shouldn't be touching the teeth either. Sadi, zayin, samach, sin, all the same letters. Zas, sheraf, resh. That's not a r. That's completely wrong. And it's not a g. That's completely wrong. It's a r. Like a Spanish R. R. Why? Same place. Zayin, Rish. Same place in the mouth. Anyway, that's from the Sefer Yetzirah. So you can look at that. You look it up over there, you'll see. Okay? So what is the difference between Tze'aka and Ze'aka? Didn't get the answer to that one.
One is with fervor. One is.
They're both with fervor. One is, I'm voting for Trump, so therefore things are going to get better. That's called Tze'aka. What is Tze'aka? There is nothing that I can do to fix the situation. I can only rely on God. En lanu lihi sha'en ela al avinu shebashamayim. It's not Sahal. It's not Bibi Netanyahu. It's not the head of the army. It's not the American bombs that they're getting. En lanu li sha'en ela al avinu shebashamayim. Adonai hu Elohim. The source of all the power in the world is Yud Kei Vav Kei. What is giving Trump his source of his power? Yud Kei Vav Kei. Same one was giving Biden the source of his power, even though he's incompetent. Yud Kei Vav Kei. That is the source of all the kochot in the world. And what is the job of a Jew? To say everything, this is all from Yud Kei Vav Kei. To expose it. That everybody should know.
Consciousness. There's no consciousness about it.
Correct. And if there's no consciousness amongst the Jewish people, how is there, I'm not saying no, if there isn't enough consciousness amongst the Jewish people, how do we expect there to be consciousness amongst the Gentiles? How? We care what the UN has to say. Who cares what the UN has to say? Who cares? We need permission. What the Torah says, that's what we do, and that's it. Ask the rabbi, shalavicha v'yagetcha, find the posek, ask what to do, and that's it. Okay.
Israel against the world.
It's always like that. Some people want to know, when did the hatred start? When did anti-Semitism? What is the shoresh, the root of anti-Semitism? Okay, so let's think about that. Forget about let's talk about from the Torah. The earliest anti-Semitism is Yaakov and Esav. Vayistom Esav et Yaakov ala bracha. That Yaakov Avinu took the bracha from his brother that he thought he was entitled to, even though he wasn't entitled to it. And because of that, Yaakov Avinu was hated by Esav. Yes? When else do we see hatred?
The brothers.
Sinai. Gemara says the Torah is given at Mount Sinai. Why? As soon as the Torah was given, Yarda Sin'a Ba'olam.
Is it the sin?
You talking about Torah?
No. Sin'a. Meaning what? When we receive the Torah, we receive God's message in a national revelation, the only time in history where there's a national revelation. Every other religion is a private revelation, 1, 2, or 3 people. There's a national, there's only one. That's ours. And when God came down on that mountain and gave us the Torah, Yarda Sin'a Ba'olam. That is, why do people hate us? Because we received the Torah on Har Sinai. That's the reason they hate us. So they say there's a New Testament. They say you didn't really get the Torah. You got the Quran, but you corrupted it. Nonsense. We received the Torah on Har Sinai. We had direct communication with God. We brought monotheism to the world because God gave us a mission to bring it to the world. The reason why they're not sacrificing their children in the altars, in churches, and in mosques is because of us. Why? Because God came to us and gave us the Torah. Yarda Sin'a Ba'olam. That's when hatred started. The source of anti-Semitism is the Torah that we got and they didn't. Continue on. Okay, so we talk about the Shabbat. Okay, so we understand that how does the Kli receive the Shefa? There has to be tzipiyah, anticipation. The Kabbalah kidichtiv. What does that mean? Let the chesed of Hashem be on us according to how we begged for it. When they bring a person to judgment after 120 years. Shualim oto, what do they ask him? Tzipita la Yeshua? They don't ask, did you wait for the Yeshua? They ask, did you anticipate the Yeshua? And how does a person anticipate the Yeshua? How does that work? Only Lubavitch are the ones who anticipate the Yeshua? How does that work? Why is it that so many of us are not anticipating the Yeshua? Or we're anticipating the Yeshua for the wrong reason?
The wrong reason.
Yes. If I ask your average Jew, from Jew, why do you want the Mashiach to come? What's the answer?
Peace in the world.
Peace in the world. What else? Peace in the land of Israel. I can go live in the land of Israel, make Aliyah there. Bet HaMikdash is going to be built. That's the reason. Is that the right reason? Why should the Jew be anticipating the Yeshua?
No, it says so.
Why should the Jew be anticipating the Yeshua?
Because the world events, we can see something's happening.
It shows you're excited for it. Just waiting passively.
All its neighbors.
Everything we said so far was about us. We are forgetting something.
negate us, that would negate ourselves.
Correct. And therefore, what's the only reason that we anticipate the redemption? For the restoration, of Hashem's name in the world. So that everyone who's on this planet, Jew or Gentile, recognize Yud Kei Vav Kei is God. So that everyone will recognize that, and to connect the Shekhinah with Yud Kei Vav Kei. That is ultimately what redemption is. It's returning back to the land of Israel and allowing there to be the Yichud, the Yesod, and between the Malchut, between the Kudsha Baruch Hu and Shechintei. And what does the Malchut have to have? What did we just read? The Malchut has to have anticipation. Anticipation of what? Of Yichud. That Yichud between Kudsha Baruch Hu and Shechintei has been defective for 2,000 years. And I'll even say it's defective since the destruction of the first temple. Because during Solomon's time, Gentiles would come to Solomon. Why?
For advice. He was smart.
Not just for advice.
For blessing.
They came to see the relationship between God and the Jewish people. When we left Egypt, during that brief period of time, what did all the Goyim in the world realize? Yud Kei Vav Kei runs the world. That's called redemption.
How did they forget it so fast?
Because they went 3 days without water.
No, how did they go and forget it?
Again, because it wasn't permanent. It was a temporary situation. We have to be anticipating the Mashiach to restore God's name in the world. There's a Haftarah that talks about that. I'm not going to redeem you because you have profaned my name in the world. God is going to redeem us because his name has been profaned. And there's going to come a point in time where he's no longer going to allow his name to be profaned. And he's going to bring the Mashiach to restore his position in the world.
Is that Beito or is that Achishem?
That's Achishem. That's Beito.
Right. So that's second case. That's not the idea.
Well, we're not doing a good job in Achishena. So at the end of the day, it looks like it's
Must be
Beito. But why? What are we missing? We're not doing it for the right motivation. The motivation is L'Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. Just like all mitzvot, the motivation is L'Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. I am nothing. I'd love to live in Israel. I'd love to have the Beit HaMikdash. I'd love to have all these things. The reason I want the Mashiach is because I want Hashem's name to be restored in the world.
You think people want it because they want to donate to the new catering?
Whatever it is, it's all kinds of other things. It's only for the boss. That is called L'Shem Shamayim. And we just read that. Why it's Tzipita Yeshua? Did you anticipate the coming of the redemption? Right? First of all, you have to know what you're anticipating. You're anticipating the restoration of Yud Kei Vav Kei as the Melech in the world.
And that's Yichud between the Shekinah and the Yud Kei Vav Kei.
That's correct. Between the
Right.
Shekhinah and the Yesod, right? Or which is the real Zer and Pi,
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
100%.
yes,
And then, yeah,
Shekinah is described as the Elokai.
Aleph Daled Nun Yud.
Huh?
Adonai, Aleph Daled Nun Yud.
Yeah. But I got it here all the time, and there's places where I do the connection.
Okay,
One is for the Amen, and the other one is for the Kaddish.
okay.
Because the Kaddish is the riches.
When Avraham Avinu asked, "In what merit are my children going to inherit the land?" What name did he use, Mr. Balkore? What name did God use when he spoke to God?
Who spoke to God?
Avraham. When Avraham said,
Shin Dalet Yud.
no,
No, Hashem looking
Aleph Daled Nun Yud,
with.
with Yud Kei Vav Kei written as Elokim.
You have to go over why there's that.
It was Elohim because never Yud Kei Vav Kei until Moshe.
Habibi, if you go into the Torah, we have Yud Kei Vav Kei before Moshe. Okay?
You know what
But
that
if
You
is?
said that it was the first time.
I think it's by the letter.
It's not what I said. What I said is now it's going to be the first time they're going to know Yud Kei Vav Kei. What does it mean to know Yud Kei Vav Kei? To experience Yud Kei Vav Kei. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov did not see the representation, the experience of Yud Kei Vav Kei in the world. They knew it,
Only spiritual.
but they didn't experience it because there was no redemption. Moshe Rabbeinu is the redemption. That's the experience of the Yud Kei Vav Kei running the world. So, but Avraham Avinu, what's the first thing he says? This is the first communication he has with God, and he says, Aleph Daled Nun Yud, Aleph Daled Nun Yud, Yud Kei Vav Kei, but read as Elohim, which means the vowelization under Yud Kei Vav Kei there is Elohim. Aleph Daled Nun Yud is the Malchut. That name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, but read as Elohim, is the Binah. No, they're both Din. Okay, no, Chas v'shalom. Binah is not Din. Binah is a shorish of Din. Okay? What does that mean? It'aruta dilatata. Below, Yud Kei Aleph Daled Nun Yud is the Malchut going above. Therefore, it's it'aruta tata. That's what should have happened in Mitzrayim. Did that happen in Mitzrayim? No. It's itarota de le'ela. Therefore, it was not a permanent redemption.
Which was not a permanent.
Mitzrayim.
Yes.
Not permanent. There's another galut after.
But the one in Shushan was from below, and that wasn't permanent.
Okay, that's also that's
Unless the second.
okay. Was it from below? God was hidden, but was it really from below? God orchestrated the entire thing.
Sumo ala Shosayami?
That's almost.
God orchestrated. Anyway, we don't see names of God in there, so it's hard to understand, from the same idea. Okay, and that was also a temporary redemption because once again, the second temple was destroyed. The final redemption, it's either going to be it'aruta le'ela, it'aruta le'tata, but at the end of the day, whatever it is permanent because that's it. It's the third time, 3 strikes, and that's it. Okay, no more fourth, no more. You don't go to the next inning. Okay, continuing on. So the chesed of Hashem comes based on how the person is desirous of it, right? When they put a person into judgment, they ask, did you anticipate the coming of the redemption? Because based on how much he's anticipating, that's how much he receives. If the person is not anticipating, he doesn't receive as much. It's tzarich lishmor et hakeli, and we have to guard, we have to anticipate. Same word, the keli. Shi'amod lekabel min kedusha, that the keli should be able to receive from the kedusha, v'lo min kohot hara misaviv, and not from the side of the evil that surrounds it. The avodat halot ta'aseh lesalek hara. And what is the goal of a lo ta'aseh in the Torah? To remove the evil. Sur mera va'aseh tov. The first thing a Jew has to do is stop doing lo ta'aseh. He has to eat kosher. He has to be shomer Shabbat. He has to stop speaking lashon hara and rechilut. This is step 1. Who talks about it in his book? Ramchal. What's the first thing? Zehirut. What is Zehirut? The first level after a person has Torah, then it's Zehirut. What is Zehirut? Avoiding doing any lo ta'aseh. Zehirut is avoiding performing any negative commandment. When the Torah says don't do this, don't do it.
Is that from remembering Zechut?
No, Zehir, which means watchful, careful. Don't step into that. That is rebellion against God. The protection, shomer, yes, shomer. Hishamer lecha. When the Torah says hishamer lecha, that's a lo ta'aseh. Very good, chazak, nice. Okay. Next, but that's not enough for a person just to avoid rebelling against God. What's the next step? You have to do for God. Tefillin, tzitzit, tefillah, Talmud Torah. That's for God. That's doing action. As a human being, it's not enough not to rebel. You have to not rebel, and then you have to perform what Hashem is asking. Those are called mitzvot aseh. And that's why the next level of Mesilat Yesharim after Zehirut is Zirizut. What is Zirizut? Zirizut makdimin lamitzvah. Zirizim makdimin lamitzvah. Meaning what? A person with zariz, he is makdim. He can't wait to do the mitzvah. That's an action.
And the three important ones you said, study Torah, what else? Talmud.
They're all important. All the mitzvot aseh are important. Anytime a person has a mitzvot aseh, it's important. Okay? But this first step is sur merah. First step is remove yourself from evil.
Say it again.
Sur merah.
Sur merah.
That's a pasuk in the Tehillim. Sur merah. Remove yourself from evil. What does that mean? Avoid doing any lo ta'aseh. But that's not enough. Va'aseh tov. Now you have to do good. Okay? And that's what the rabbi just said over here. The lo ta'aseh is there to remove the evil, to remove oneself from the evil. What puts the person in the good? The aseh. Oh, this is from the Gaon Rav Moshe Shapira. Okay. Ubishabbat na'aseh hayichud al yidei shehitrachek ha'adam minyanei achol v'zeu shamor. What is Shabbat? Shabbat has both aspects. Has shamor, has zachor, has lo ta'aseh, and has aseh. What's the lo ta'aseh in Shabbat? Removing yourself from chol, from a deeper, avoiding malacha. I get it, right? But removing yourself from chol.
From the mindset of the mundane.
Removing yourself from the mindset of the mundane. Okay? Once a person removes themselves from the mundane, nidbak bikdushat Shabbat, then he has to attach himself to the holiness of Shabbat. How does a person do that? Torah, tefillah, kiddush, onek Shabbat. Again, that's not what he's focusing on. He says Torah and tefillah. That's the way a person attaches themselves to the kedusha of Shabbat.
But you can do that any day. It just so happens that you read the whole parsha, and the tefillah is a little different. You add your mosif musaf. You do haftarah.
Really? You could do it's the way you do it every day?
It's
So let
not the
me
way
tell
you do it every day,
in
but
Boca
you do pray and learn
in
Torah
Boca
every day.
in Boca Raton, is there a 2-hour class before Mincha every single day?
Before you got here?
No, even after I got here, there's still only on Shabbat we have a 2-hour class. Yeah, totally. I'm a kolel. I'm not a kolel. Kolel, these are people who are basically not living in the world. They're not. Okay, we're talking about people who are working and go to kolel, or we're talking about people who are working in kolel?
There are few people that there's a kollel here in where the restaurants are, but there are a couple of the people that go there are working people.
Baruch Hashem. Thank God. That's amazing. How about in this synagogue?
It's only one.
There are classes all the time in the library.
Good. That's great. How many people come?
Yeah, sometimes even 30.
Okay. Baruch Hashem. So Shabbat, when we say the difference is Shabbat, is on Shabbat, since people are not working, they're separating themselves from the chol, right? They can take a nap if they want, but at the end of the day, there's more time for Torah learning. Even the Ashkenazim, if you look at their tefillah during the week, it's what, 35, 40 minutes? If it's not Torah reading, 40 minutes, right? 40 minutes. On Shabbat, it's an hour and a half. Sfaradim, our tefillah during the week is probably 50 minutes, 55 minutes. Shabbat, it's 2.5 hours or 3 hours. So we see already there's a different aspect of the Shabbat. There's more time spent in the Kedusha. Why? Because we remove ourselves from the mundane. You can look at it as you can't work. We remove ourselves from the mundane, and then we focus on the Kedusha. So the tefillah of Shabbat is different. The learning of Torah on Shabbat is different. Rabbi gets up and gives a 30-minute or 20-minute or 25-minute or 50-minute drasha on Shabbat. During the week, they don't do that.
Mondays and Wednesdays.
So
Afternoon kola, Mondays and Wednesdays.
Okay, but that's not during the tefillah. If you did that during the tefillah, people say, listen, I got to go to work. I can't stay for that, right? So we understand that there's a different mentality that a frum Jew has on Shabbat. I have time. During the week, you don't have time.
Because you have to work.
You have to work. On Shabbat, I have time. Why do we have time on Shabbat? Why does it appear that we have time on Shabbat? Just because we're not working? Why does it appear? Why is it that people come for 2 hours to a shiur Torah on Shabbat? Because Shabbat, we're getting a taste of nitzchiyut. What is nitzchiyut? Everlastingness. And since we're getting a taste of nitzchiyut, in nitzchiyut, time is irrelevant. Agreed?
Agreed.
That's the Shabbat. The shalom of the Shabbat, the peace of the Shabbat is what? I'm touching nitzchiyut. Briefly, only for 26 hours. Touching nitzchiyut. During the week, I'm not. During the week, it's got to go here, got to go there, run here, run there. I got a class, I got a daven, I got to get here, I got it there. That's during the week. I'm not touching nitzchiyut. Time is running. Shabbat, time sort of slows down. Because we're touching nitzchiyut. We're touching the everlasting. Yom Shekulo Shabbat. Mizmor Shir La'atid Lavo. Yom Shekulo Shabbat L'chai Olamim. A day that is Shabbat, that is entirely Shabbat, forever. That is nitzchiyut. Yichud ha'idei shehitrached ha'adam minyanei hachol v'zeu shamor. So the shamor part of Shabbat is to remove oneself from the chol, to remove oneself through the lo ta'aseh of Shabbat, the one not performing the lo ta'asehs. That's how a person removes themselves from the chol. Sur merah. And afterwards, he attaches himself to the Kedusha of Shabbat. Betorah utfilah, bechinat zachor, aseh. כמו שכתב בספר הבהיר, ספר הבהיר, רבי נחוניה הקנה, אות קוף פי בית, זכור לזכר, שמור לכלה. Zachor is for the zachar, shamor is for the kala. והעניין, כי מילת זכירה היא מצוות עשה, זכירה is מצוות עשה, ומצוות עשה יוצאות ממידת זכור, הבאה מן האהבה. And the mitzvot aseh, the milah of the mitzvot aseh come from the midah of the zachor, yes? Haba min ha'ava, that comes from ahava. Ki ha'oseh mitzvot adonav, ohev oto merchem lo. A person who does the mitzvot of his master, that's how he shows his love. Does a man show his love to his wife by not engaging in other relationships? No, that's how a man does a commitment. The way you show your love is by doing something positive, buying something, giving some kind words. That's called action. Milat shmira hi b'mitzvot lo ta'aseh. The word shmira is in mitzvot lo ta'aseh. The remez la shchina, and the remez is to the shchina. This is in the Sefer Bahir. So we see from here that all the authors of the Kabbalistic books are saying the same thing. The hi midat ha'yir'ah. The zachor is the midah of ahava. The shamor is the midah of yir'ah. Ki hanishmar me'asot devara, a person who guards themselves from doing something that is evil. Be'enei adonav yereoto. Why is he avoiding doing something evil? Because he has awe of his master. So awe, fear, brings a person not to do something that's a rebellion against the master. Love brings a person to do something that the master asks. Valken shamor lekala. Therefore, shamor is for the kala, which is the feminine. Odama Zachor Layom, and the Zachor is for the Yom, which is the masculine. The Shamor Laila, Harem is Midat Yom and Midat Laila. The concept of Yom and Laila. Yom being the masculine, and Laila being the feminine. Okay, let's do one more. One more.
One more. I'm saturated.
Zachor leyom keneged El Chai v'Shamor lelayla keneged Adonai. So we said the two names. The one that's comparable to the Zachor, the Yesod, is going to be El Chai. The one that's comparable to the Laila is going to be Adonai. Aleph Daled Nun Yud. Halaylahu, Halaylahu memshelet midata malchut kedita bazohar. The Laila is the dominion of the Malchut, like it says in the Zohar. Memshelet hayom dechura, memshelet halayla nukva. The one who's in charge, the ruler in the daytime, is the Zachor, is the Zachor, is the masculine, and the one in the night is the Nukva, is the feminine. Again, not ruler. It's bad. There's only one ruler. Yes. The Moshel be'olamenu hashemesh bayom, and what rules over the day is the shemesh. Yes, the sun. More al hashpato yitbarach kedugmat hazachar, that is compared to the dugma of the Zachar. Hamashpia, that causes there to be influence, brings light, source. It's a source of light. The alayla shebo me'ir hayareach, and the night where it's the yareach that is giving the light. Hu mashal midat malchut. It's the midah of the malchut. Hamkabelet et or, receives the or, reflects it. Hashemesh u me'ira latachtonim. That's the malchut. What is the job of the malchut? To receive from above and to distribute below. That's the yareach. Therefore, in the daytime, the person has tefillah and mitzvot, leteken kol ha'olamot, to correct all of the worlds, and to draw a great shefa from above to the midah of the malchut. Ubalayla me'ir hayareach, and at night the moon is what's shining. Umidat hamalchut yored the tachtonim, and what does the malchut do? Comes down to the tachtonim, comes down to the lower creatures. Lechalek ma shekibla likrat hayom, to give over what she received in the day. Hachadash kidichtiv vatakom beod laila vatiten teref lena'arotea. Vatakom beod laila. What is that talking about? Where's that pasuk from? Eshet Chayil. Talking about the feminine. Vatakom, she wakes up while it's still night. Vatiten teref lena'arotea, and she gives over sustenance to her young ones. Ubelel Shabbat anu bonim et olamenu, and on the night of Shabbat, the Leil of Shabbat, we build our world kedugmat malchut, like the malchut. Beshamor she'ozvim inyanei achol, we abandon the things of the day of the mundane. Ubonim al yidei kiddush olam ukli mekudash, and we build through the kiddush, which is the aseh. We build what? Olam, a world, and kli mekudash, and a holy vessel. Ubayom husman shel hashpat bechinat zachor, in the day is the bechinah, the influence of the zachor, the zachur. Mekablim ma'atika kadisha et yismach Moshe b'matanat chelko b'Torah. What is the bracha we say in the morning? Yismach Moshe b'matanat chelko, which means what is being distributed, what is being given. That's the zachor. Ubi'er ha'inyan habib Michtav Eliyahu, and this was explained by Rav Dessler in Michtav Eliyahu. Wonderful, wonderful sefer. Chelek hey, b'tfilot Shabbat anu omrim balayla vayinuchu ba. At night, what do we say? Vayinuchu ba, the feminine. We there? Ubayom vayanuchu bo. In the tefillah, at night we say ba. In the morning we say bo. Why? See, people don't realize that the whole tefillah is full of sod. Why at night do we say ba, and in the morning and the day we say bo?
Night is feminine.
Yeah.
Day is masculine.
Night is feminine. Night is shamor. Day is masculine. Day is zachor.
Because there are changes at night.
I don't
During
understand.
the day, there's no changes with the sun. Only with the moon, there's changes.
Okay, but what we've done at night is Sur Merah. Shabbat, we stop doing things of Chol at night.
There's much more negativity at night. So
Good. Hold on, negativity. Hold on, negativity. Shabbat comes in and we stop doing melacha, which means up until Shabbat comes in or before, we're doing melacha. Now we stop doing melacha. In the day, we've already stopped doing melacha. Right? When sunrise comes, we've already spent 12 hours not doing melacha. So the inyan is zachor as opposed to shamor. Sur mera va'asetov. Because at night, he's going to say exactly what I just said. Because at night, when the Shabbat is coming in, we're coming from the chol, we're coming from the mundane. Shabbat hi b'bchinat nukva. The Shabbat is a nukva, is the feminine. Ki anu tzruchim lahashpia la kedusha, because we have to influence the Shabbat with kedusha, holiness. Meaning what? We have to stop our labor. We have to stop our melacha. And that's the bechina of the kala. Why is it Rav Alkabetz said lecha dodi likrat kala? When do we sing that? We don't sing that in the day. We sing that when you mekabel the kala, which is the feminine, which is at night. Ubayom kisha Shabbat hitchazka vitbasisa etzleinu, and in the yom, when we already spent all that time already not doing melacha, we're not coming from the chol, right? We're already coming from the kedusha. When the day breaks, when the sun comes out, we're coming from the kedusha. When the sun sets, we're coming from chol. Yes. Here in the morning, we're coming from kedusha, which was the night, which was Shabbat. We're already not doing melacha. It switches to the bechina of duchra, which is to giving, to be received, to giving. Mashpia hamekadeshet otanu, and that's what gives us the kedusha. Shibalayla Shabbati or hamitiachesa bechinat hakabbalah shiakala. At night, the or is basically the type of, it's a kabbalah. It's like the kala. It's empty, which means we stop doing work. The ayom he bechinat or elyon, and the yom is really the or elyon, the or from above. Hamidiaches elav b'bichnat hachatan hamashpia, and that's like the chatan. So the night we say boi kala. Technically, if Rav Alkabetz was going to write a song for the day, it should be boi chatan, bo chatan.
So what do you say during the day?
We don't. Again, he has a song for the night. But the day, if we were going to sing a song like Lecha Dodi, Likrat Chatan, because that's what we're doing in the day. We're reading the Chatan. Okay, we're the Kala at night too. The key is the Shabbat. The first aspect of the Shabbat that comes in is the feminine. And then the Shabbat in the day is the masculine. That's why we have Vayinuchu Ba on Friday night. And on Shabbat morning, we have Vayinuchu Bo. Okay? Lachen katvu gam harishonim shezachor hu keneged mitzvot aseh. Zachor is vis-a-vis the mitzvot aseh. Shu inyan hashpa v'noheg rak bayom. That really, and because think about it, the mitzvot, most of them are in the day, the positive commandments. During the week, it's the same thing. Tefillin is in the daytime, not in the nighttime. Tzitzit in the daytime, not in the nighttime. Right? On Shabbat, what mitzvah do we have? We have Kiddush. Kiddush is the positive commandment. What other mitzvah do we have? We have Oneg Shabbat. Okay, very good. In the day, we have Sefer Torah. We have a long tefillah. Yes? Okay. So at the night, what we do is we build up the utensils. We build up the kelim to be receiving. Shlemim, that they should be complete. Lekabel et oro, to receive the or yitbarach, beli shum ta'arovet ra u'kilkul, without any mixture of evil or mess up. Shezoi avodata shel ha'isha, this is the work of the woman. Lishmor tabayi, to guard the house, the heichal and the heichal. Shelo yikansu bo kochot hara, so there should not be any kochot evil that come into the house. Hasovivimi bachutz. That's why the Mishnah says a man that is without a wife is without a choma. What does the choma do? protects what's on the inside. Shmirah, that is the job of the lady. Mibachutz v'yeh kulo makom lekabalat hashefer shel zachar. And she prepares, so there's room, so there's ability to receive from the zachar. V'chen halot ta'aseh keneged hagidim remach evarim. The lo ta'aseh is vis-a-vis the gidim, the sinews, right? Remach avarim v'shes hagidim. We have remach evarim, 245 limbs, and we have 365 sinews. Yes. What is the job of the sinews? To keep the body together, hold things together. That's the job of the nekeva. And not to go back to how it was before. Okay? We'll stop here. Baruch Adonai leolam, amen ve'amen.
For the Mishkan, you don't do, Beis Hamikdash, they didn't do